The spaceship Horizon's Edge floated quietly in the empty space between human territory and Zethian territory. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge with his hands behind his back. He watched the alien ships getting closer on the big screen in front of him. "They are keeping their position," said Lieutenant Kate Morrison from her workstation. "They don't look like they want to fight, sir." Daniel nodded. 3 months of talking and planning had brought them to this moment. The Zethians were a race of beings that looked like giant lizards. They had a strong military and protected their space very carefully. After a long time, they finally agreed to meet with humans. This was important because the Zethians controlled space routes that humans needed badly for trade. "Open a communication channel," Daniel ordered. "Channel is open, sir. This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the Earth Alliance ship Horizon's Edge. We are ready to welcome your group." The answer came back in rough, accented speech. "This is Commander Veshikal of the Zethian Defense Fleet. We are sending a small transport ship. We expect you to follow all safety rules." Daniel looked at his security chief, Lieutenant Paul Carter. Paul nodded to show everything was ready. 20 minutes passed. Then the Zethian group walked through the airlock into the human ship. Commander Veshikal was huge, almost 7 feet tall. His scales were deep green and his eyes reflected light like mirrors. Behind him came 3 other officers and someone who seemed to be an advisor. But the last member of their group caught everyone's attention in a different way. Dr. Amy Sullivan was the ship's expert on alien life. She stepped forward to greet the visitors. Amy was short, only 5 feet 3 inches tall. She had bright red hair tied back in a simple knot. Her green eyes were sharp and quick to notice things. She held out her hand to shake, which was how humans greeted each other. A small chirping sound came from a bag on the advisor's back. "I'm sorry," the advisor said quickly. His words came through a translation machine. The young ones were not supposed to make noise. Amy's eyes went wide with interest. "Young ones? You brought children with you?" Veshikal looked uncomfortable, though his face was hard to read. It was necessary. Their parent died in a transport crash 3 cycles ago. We have no place to keep them on military ships. This meeting could not wait. Amy looked at Captain Hayes. He let out a long breath. "Dr. Sullivan, I need to talk to you." They stepped to the side while the Zethian group waited in the entrance area. "This was not in the files we received," Daniel said quietly. "Sir, this is a chance for us," Amy answered. "The Zethians have not wanted to tell us much about their culture. How they care for children can teach us a lot about them. We have empty rooms. It would not be hard to let them stay during the talks." Daniel rubbed his head. "And who exactly is going to watch alien children while we are in important meetings?" Amy smiled a bit too eagerly. "I volunteer, sir. This is part of studying alien life forms. Dr. Sullivan, you are supposed to be in those meetings. You are our expert on Zethian biology. Lieutenant Commander Greg Allen knows almost as much as I do about how Zethians work. He can be there for the meetings. Please, sir, this could help build trust." Daniel looked at the Zethian group, then back at Amy. "Fine, but if this goes wrong, you are responsible." "I understand, sir." Amy walked over to the Zethian advisor. His name was Scholar Tixall. "If you want, I can watch the young ones during the talks. We have good rooms for them. I know a lot about alien biology." Tixall's eyes got bigger, which meant he was surprised. "You would do this?" "They are predator species young. Even our own people find them difficult to handle. I grew up with 3 younger brothers. I also worked at an animal shelter during summers," Amy said with a grin. "I think I can manage." Commander Veshikal and Scholar Tixall looked at each other for a long moment. Finally, Veshikal spoke. "Very well. But understand this. If they cause damage or hurt someone, it will make our group look bad. They will be safe and well cared for," Amy promised. The bag was given to Amy. She took it to her quarters and opened it carefully. 2 small shapes tumbled out onto the floor. They looked like tiny adult Zethians, but their eyes were bigger and their scales were softer and lighter in color. Each one was about the size of a house cat. They had 4 legs and long tails that could grab things. Right away, they started exploring the room. They made chirping sounds as they walked. Their small claws clicked on the metal floor. Amy sat down on the floor and watched them with joy. "Okay, you 2, let's set some rules." One of the young ones, a bit bigger than the other, came close to her slowly. It sniffed her hand, then made a trilling sound and climbed right into her lap. The second one followed a moment later. "Well, that was easy. Amy said softly. She gently touched the soft scales on their backs. They were warm, warmer than she expected. Both young ones curled up in her lap. Within minutes, they seemed to fall asleep. Amy turned on her personal recording device. Observation log day 1 of Zethian contact. The young ones show very trusting behavior with an unfamiliar species. This suggests either they are very young and don't know about danger yet, or Zethian young are built to bond socially no matter what species they meet. I need to observe more. She looked down at the sleeping forms in her lap and smiled. You're going to teach me a lot, aren't you? The doorbell rang. Amy called for the person to enter. Lieutenant Paul Carter stepped inside. He stopped suddenly, staring at what he saw. Dr. Sullivan, I was sent to check on you. Are those the alien kids? Young ones, yes. They have settled in very well. Paul's hand moved toward his weapon without thinking. Ma'am, aren't they dangerous? The Zethians are listed as a predator species. We were told about their hunting abilities. Amy looked down at the peacefully sleeping creatures in her lap, then back up at Paul. Her face showed amusement. Dangerous? Only to my free time. I think I'm going to be stuck here for a while. Paul relaxed a little, though he still looked uncertain. If you're sure, ma'am. I'll be outside if you need anything. I'm sure, Lieutenant. Thank you. After the door closed behind him, Amy settled back against the wall. She was careful not to wake the sleeping young ones. Through the window, stars moved past as the horizon's edge stayed in position. This was going to be an interesting assignment. Amy had studied many alien species before, but she had never actually cared for young aliens from a predator race. The Zethians were known for being fierce warriors and careful protectors of their territory. Yet these two small creatures trusted her completely after only a few minutes. She thought about what that might mean. In her years of study, she had learned that young animals often had different instincts than adults. They were programmed to seek safety and care. Maybe that instinct was so strong in Zethian young that it crossed species lines. Or maybe, she thought, there was something about humans that felt safe to them. Humans were predators too in their own way. They had forward-facing eyes and ate meat. But humans also had strong nurturing instincts. They cared for their young for many years. They even adopted young from other species as pets. Whatever the reason, these two young Zethians had chosen to trust her. And Amy was determined not to let them down. She knew the next few days would be challenging. She would need to learn what they ate, how often they needed to sleep, what made them comfortable or scared. She would need to keep them safe and healthy while their own people conducted important political talks. But as she sat there with the warm weight of two sleeping aliens in her lap, Amy felt a sense of purpose. This was why she had joined the Space Service, not just to study aliens from a distance, but to truly understand them, to build bridges between species. And sometimes, she thought with a smile, bridges started with something as simple as caring for children. The next morning came with a soft chime from the door. Amy had managed to move herself and the sleeping young ones to her bed during the night. The young Zethians, which she still called Zeth A and Zeth B in her notes, had turned out to be very affectionate once they trusted her. Amy carefully pulled herself free from the tangle of small reptile bodies and answered the door. Lieutenant Kate Morrison stood in the hallway looking worried. Dr. Sullivan, the captain wanted me to check on you. You missed the morning briefing. I sent a message, Amy said with a yawn. The young ones were restless during the night. I thought staying with them was more important than leaving them upset in a strange place. Kate looked past her into the room. Are they okay? See for yourself. Kate walked inside. Her face became softer right away. The two young ones were awake now. They were wrestling playfully on the bed, making chirps and squeaks that sounded almost like laughter. They're actually kind of cute, Kate said. But I can see what you mean about free time. Did you get any sleep? A few hours. They're good sleepers once they calm down. The problem is they have different sleep cycles than humans. They seem to work on a 4-hour pattern. Sleep 4 hours, wake for 4 hours, then sleep again. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it's also really interesting. Amy went to her computer and pulled up her notes. Look at this. Their body temperature changes by almost 3 degrees during their wake cycle, and their scales are still soft. I think they don't get hard until they're adults. Zeth B, the smaller one, suddenly jumped from the bed and ran over to Kate. It climbed up her uniform pants with surprising speed. Whoa! Kate froze. Doctor? It's okay. They're just curious. Hold it under the back legs and it will settle down. Kate awkwardly held the young one. It immediately curled up against her chest and started making a rhythmic humming sound. Is it purring? Kate asked in amazement. I think that's how they show they're happy. They do it a lot. I think they really miss being held and touched. Poor things. Kate gently petted the young one's head. Losing a parent so young. Actually, Scholar Tixal sent me some information this morning. In Zethian society, young ones are raised by the whole group. The entire clan shares the job. So they're not just missing one parent, they're missing their whole social structure. That makes what you're doing even more impressive, Kate said, looking at Amy with new respect. You're basically being an entire Zethian clan by yourself. I'm doing my best. Amy picked up Zethe, which had started pulling on her pants. Though I'll admit it's harder than I thought it would be. The door chimed again. This time it was Scholar Tixal with Commander Veshkal. Dr. Sullivan, Tixal said as he entered. He moved quickly toward the young ones. We came to see how they did through the night. Both alien officers stopped when they saw the scene. Kate was holding one young one against her chest while Amy held the other. Both young ones were calm and clearly comfortable with the humans. Veshkal's eyes narrowed in surprise. They have bonded with you. Is that unusual? Amy asked. Very, Tixal answered. Zethian young are usually afraid of adults they don't know, even adults of our own species. It takes many days, sometimes weeks, for them to accept new clan members, yet they accepted you in just one night. Maybe humans just have a way with kids, Kate said with a smile. Perhaps. Veshkal moved closer, studying Amy carefully. Or perhaps there is something about human behavior that makes predator young feel safe. This is unexpected. Tixal pulled out a device and started recording. May I document this? It could be important for understanding human-Zethian relations. Of course, Amy agreed. Actually, I've been keeping my own notes. Would you like to compare what we found? I have questions about what they should eat and how they develop. What followed was a 2-hour discussion between Amy and Tixal. Kate joined in when her work allowed. They talked about everything from sleep patterns to social behaviors to food needs. Veshkal watched silently. His face was hard to read. Finally, the commander spoke. Dr. Sullivan, I must tell Captain Hayes about this development. The bonding between your species and our young could have big effects on our political relations. Effects? Amy asked carefully. What kind of effects? Good ones, I hope, Veshkal answered. In our culture, those who successfully care for unrelated young are considered to have strong clan instincts. It is one of our highest social values. After the Zethian officers left, Kate helped Amy set up a feeding station with the nutritional supplements Tixal had provided. You know what this means, right? Kate said as they worked. You're stuck with them for as long as the negotiations last. Amy watched as both young ones attacked a puzzle toy she had made from spare parts. Their little tails waved excitedly as they figured out how it worked. I think I'm okay with that, she said softly. The next few days fell into a pattern. Amy learned that the young ones needed to eat 5 times during each wake cycle. They ate a paste made from proteins and minerals that Tixal had provided. At first they were messy eaters, getting food everywhere, but Amy was patient and they quickly learned to eat more neatly. She also discovered they loved to play. They would chase each other around her quarters, making happy chirping sounds. They liked to climb on furniture and swing from things with their tails. Amy had to move several breakable items to keep them safe. Sleep was still the biggest challenge. The 4-hour cycles meant Amy never got more than 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep. She started taking short naps whenever the young ones slept. It wasn't perfect, but it worked well enough. On the 3rd day, something important happened. Healer Nixra, a Zethian medical officer, came to check on the young ones. She was gentler than most of the other Zethians Amy had met. She spoke softly and moved slowly around the young ones. They are in good condition, Nixra observed after examining them. Better than when they arrived with Scholar Tixall. What have you been feeding them? Amy explained the nutritional plan she had developed. Nixra listened carefully, sometimes asking questions or offering suggestions. By the end of the conversation, Amy felt like she had made a friend. You have good instincts for care, Nixra said. Many of our own people could learn from you. I'm just doing what feels right, Amy replied. That is often the best guide. That evening, Amy tried something new. She had asked Tixall for some Zethian children's stories. She sat on her bed with both young ones in her lap and read to them. She didn't know if they understood the words, but they seemed to like the sound of her voice. They made quiet humming sounds and snuggled closer. When the story ended, Zeth A looked up at her with big eyes. It made a sound that was different from the usual chirps, softer, more questioning. It's okay, Amy said gently, stroking its scales. You're safe here. The young one made the sound again, then settled down to sleep. Later, when Amy was recording her daily observations, she noted that moment. Zeth A appears to be developing more complex vocalizations, maybe attempting early language development. Both young ones show increasing trust and comfort. Zeth B has started following me around the room even when not distressed. Zeth A initiates play more frequently. Overall progress is positive. She paused, then added, Personal note, I'm getting attached to them. I know they'll have to go back to their own people eventually, but I'm going to miss them when that happens. On the fourth day, Captain Hayes called Amy to his office. The young ones came with her, secured in their carrying case. They didn't like being in the case, but Amy had learned to distract them with treats. Dr. Sullivan, Daniel said when she arrived. I've been getting reports from Commander Veshikal about your progress with the young Zethians. Is there a problem, sir? On the contrary, he's very impressed. So impressed that the Zethian delegation has asked if you would be willing to give a presentation about human child-rearing practices. Amy blinked. They want me to teach them about human children? They want to understand what makes humans so good at cross-species care. Apparently, your success with their young ones has made them curious about human social structures. I'll do it, of course. When? Tomorrow, during the afternoon session. You'll have about an hour. Daniel smiled. This is good, Doctor. You're building bridges in ways the diplomatic team never could. As Amy left the office, she thought about what to include in her presentation. How could she explain human family structures and child rearing to aliens who raise their young communally? How could she make them understand that care and love crossed all boundaries? She looked down at the carrying case where two small faces looked up at her trustingly. Maybe she didn't need to explain it with words. Maybe she just needed to show them. Amy was on the floor of her quarters playing with the young ones when her communication badge made a sound. The young ones had been learning a new game. Amy would hide a treat under one of 3 cups and they had to find it. Zeth A was getting very good at the game. Sullivan here, she said, touching the badge. Captain Hayes's voice came through. He sounded tense. Doctor, we need you on the bridge now. Sir, the young ones, bring them. This concerns them directly. Amy's stomach tightened with worry. She quickly put the young ones in their carrying case. They made confused chirping sounds. They didn't like the case. She moved as fast as she could toward the bridge. When she arrived, she found everyone at their stations. Their faces looked serious. On the main screen was another Zethian ship. This one was much bigger and had more weapons than the ships they had seen before. What's happening? Amy asked, standing next to the captain's chair. That's the Zethian clan ship Territorial Claw, Daniel explained quietly. They're claiming custody of the young ones. Apparently they're the next of kin, but I thought Scholar Tixall was taking care of them. Tixall is from a different clan. There's some kind of dispute over custody rights. Daniel rubbed his face. He looked tired. The Territorial Claw is demanding we transfer the young ones immediately. They're threatening to consider it a hostile act if we refuse. That's crazy, Amy said angrily. The young ones are settled and comfortable. Moving them again would be traumatic. I agree, but we're in a difficult position here, Doctor. Commander Veshkal and Scholar Tixall came onto the bridge. Both looked agitated. The tension between them was obvious. Captain Hayes, Veshkal said formally, I must apologize. I had hoped to resolve this clan dispute privately, but Clan Territorial has insisted on involving your ship. What exactly is the problem? Daniel asked. Tixall spoke up. His translator showed clear distress in his voice. The young one's parent was from Clan Territorial, but that parent had bonded with a member of my clan, Clan Harmonious. Under traditional law, custody falls to the parent's birth clan. However, under modern Zethian law, custody should be determined by what's best for the young ones. And you believe your clan offers the best environment? Amy asked. I believe the young ones have already bonded with you, Dr. Sullivan, Tixall said carefully. Disrupting that bond now would cause psychological harm. Clan Territorial, however, does not recognize bonding with non-Zethians as legitimate. As if they knew they were being talked about, the young ones began making distressed sounds from their carrier. Amy opened it. They immediately climbed up to sit on her shoulders, one on each side. A new voice came over the communication system. It was harsh and commanding. This is Matriarch Keseval of Clan Territorial. I demand the immediate return of our clan young. Daniel sat up straighter in his chair. This is Captain Hayes. With respect, Matriarch, the young ones are currently under the care of one of my officers. They appear to be thriving. Humans cannot provide proper clan upbringing. You are not Zethian. You cannot teach them our ways. Amy felt both young ones grip her uniform tighter. She looked at Daniel. He nodded slightly, giving her permission to speak. Matriarch Keseval, my name is Dr. Amy Sullivan. I've been caring for these young ones for several days now. They've accepted me as a caregiver. They're eating well, sleeping properly, and showing healthy developmental behaviors. Irrelevant. They belong to Clan Territorial. We will take them now. No, Amy said firmly. The word came out before she could stop it. The bridge went very quiet. Daniel gave her a warning look but didn't contradict her. You refuse? Keseval's voice was threatening. You dare refuse a matriarch's claim? I'm not refusing your claim, Amy said, choosing her words carefully. I'm advocating for what's best for the young ones. Scholar Tixall is right. They've bonded with me. Separating them now would be traumatic. Then you will accompany them to our ship and remain until they transfer their bonding to proper clan members. Amy's eyes went wide. I'm sorry, what? You clearly have caregiver instincts. We are not unreasonable. If the young have bonded with you, then you will serve as temporary clan until proper arrangements can be made. Daniel stood up. Matriarch, I can't allow one of my officers to be transferred to your ship without proper diplomatic protocols. Then we are at an impasse. And impasses, Captain, often lead to unfortunate outcomes. The threat was clear. Amy looked around the bridge. She could see the tension in every face. This could turn into a major conflict over two scared alien children. Captain, Amy said quietly. Permission to speak freely? Granted. I'll go. Dr. Sullivan. Sir, those young ones are terrified right now. I can feel them shaking. If me going with them prevents both trauma to them and a political crisis, then it's the logical choice. You don't know what conditions will be like on that ship, Lieutenant Paul Carter said. You'd be alone with no backup. Not alone, Veshkal said suddenly. I will accompany Dr. Sullivan, as will Scholar Tixall. We can act as cultural liaisons and ensure her safety. Tixall nodded. It is an acceptable compromise. The young ones keep their bonded caregiver. Clan Territorial receives custody, and the human delegation is represented. Daniel looked at Amy for a long moment. Are you absolutely sure about this? Amy felt the young ones pressing against her neck. She heard their frightened chirps. I'm sure, sir. All right, Daniel turned to the screen. Matriarch Keseval, we have a proposal. 20 minutes later, Amy stood in the shuttle bay with Veshkal and Tixall. The young ones were secure in their carrier. Lieutenant Kate Morrison was checking a list on her datapad. Emergency beacon in your jacket pocket, Kate said quickly. It'll work through any jamming. Personal shield generator in case things get physical. Extra food for you and the young ones. Medical kit. Translator updates. And this, she handed Amy a small device. Direct communication link to the ship. Captain Hayes insisted. Thanks, Kate. Amy gave her friend a quick hug.
Take care of my lab while I'm gone?
Of course. You just focus on those two and getting back safely. The shuttle ride to the Territorial Claw was tense and quiet. Amy kept the young ones close, whispering reassurances. She wasn't sure they understood her words, but her tone seemed to calm them. As they docked with the Zethian ship, Amy took a deep breath. She was about to enter completely unknown territory. She only had 2 alien officers for backup and 2 scared young ones depending on her. Well, she said to herself, Here we go, the airlock opened. The corridor beyond was filled with Zethian clan members. They all watched the newcomers with expressions Amy couldn't read. Amy stepped through with the young ones on her shoulders. She walked forward into the unknown. The inside of the territorial claw was very different from human ships. Warm colors covered the walls. The surfaces had textures that felt almost alive. The lighting changed in patterns. Everything was built bigger, which made Amy feel very small as she walked between Veshkal and Tixal. Matriarch Keseval waited in a large central space. She was huge, even bigger than other Zethians. Her scales were deep bronze with marks that might have been scars. Her eyes fixed on Amy with intensity. So this is the human who believes she can raise Zethian young. Keseval's voice was cold. You are small, weak, soft. I'm strong enough, Amy replied, keeping her voice steady. The young ones chirped nervously on her shoulders. We shall see. Follow. The matriarch led them through a maze of corridors to a large chamber that looked like a courtyard. Several adult Zethians waited there. There were also several young ones of different ages. It was a clan nursery. Our young are raised in groups, Keseval explained. They learn through play, through competition, through cooperation.
Can you provide this, human?
Not by myself, Amy admitted. But with your clan's help, I can certainly try. We do not help outsiders. We test them. Keseval made a gesture. Two slightly older young ones approached. Place the infants with their cohort. We will see if your bonding holds, Amy hesitated. Then she carefully set Zethe and Zethb on the ground. They immediately pressed against her legs. They refused to move toward the other young ones. The watching adults made sounds that Amy's translator showed as disapproving. They are too dependent, one said. This is not healthy. They've experienced trauma, Amy countered. Their parent died. They were moved to a strange ship with strange beings. They need time to process that before they can socialize normally. Trauma is no excuse for weakness, Keseval said flatly. In the wild, weak young do not survive. Good thing we're not in the wild then, Amy snapped. She immediately regretted her tone. But the matriarch's cold dismissal of the young one's emotional state made her angry. Surprisingly, Keseval's eyes showed something that might have been approval. You have fire. Good. Young need caregivers who will defend them. Scholar Tixal stepped forward. Matriarch, may I suggest a compromise? Allow Dr. Sullivan to work with the young in smaller groups first. Gradual integration rather than immediate immersion. That is not our way. Then perhaps it should be, Veshkal said quietly. The galaxy is changing, Matriarch, Veshkal continued. Our ways must adapt or we will be left behind. These young ones lost their parent in a transport accident because we insisted on using old navigation systems instead of accepting human help with route mapping. How many more will die because we refuse to learn from other species? The gathered clan members stirred uneasily. Clearly, Veshkal had touched on a controversial topic. Keseval's tail moved sharply. You speak dangerously, Commander. I speak truth. And this human has shown more care for two orphaned young in a few days than some clan members show their own offspring in years. You go too far. Do I? Veshkal gestured to Amy and the young ones. Look at them. The young are calm, healthy, properly fed. They show clear bonding behaviors. Dr. Sullivan has achieved what we ourselves struggled to do. She gave them security and safety when they needed it most. Keseval was silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. Very well. You may have one phase cycle to prove your worth, human. If the young do not show proper development by then, they will be integrated by force, and you will be returned to your ship. How long is a phase cycle? Amy asked. Approximately 10 of your standard days, Tixal supplied. Amy looked down at the two young ones pressed against her legs, then back up at the matriarch. I'll need access to information about Zethian development stages, proper socialization techniques, and cooperation from at least some clan members who are willing to interact with the young ones gently. You demand much. I demand what's necessary to do the job right. Another long silence. Then, incredibly, Keseval laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound. You are bold for such a small creature. Tixal, you will assist her. Commander Veshkal, you will observe and report to me daily. The rest of you, she addressed the gathered clan members. You will cooperate with the humans' requests within reason. As the group dispersed, several of the adult Zethians approached Amy with expressions of curiosity. One knelt down to examine the young ones. She introduced herself as healer Nixra. They are in good condition, she observed. Better than when they arrived with Scholar Tixall. What have you been feeding them? Amy explained the nutritional plan she had developed with Tixall's help. Nixra listened carefully, sometimes asking questions or offering suggestions. By the end of the conversation, Amy felt like she had found an ally. Over the following days, Amy established a routine. Mornings were spent with the young ones in private quarters. This allowed them to wake slowly and eat breakfast in a calm environment. Midday involved supervised play sessions with one or two other young Zethians. Amy carefully selected gentle ones for these sessions. Afternoons were for exploring the ship, always with Amy close by for security. Evenings included story time. Amy adapted human fairy tales and Zethian legends that Tixall provided. Slowly, gradually, the young ones began to venture further from Amy's immediate presence. Sith A, the bolder of the two, was first to engage in real play with another young one. The other young one was named Pixley. Pixley was slightly older and had infinite patience for Zeth A's clumsy attempts at wrestling. Zeth B took longer, but eventually bonded with healer Nixra. Nixra had a gentle manner and would sit for hours explaining Zethian medicinal plants to anyone who would listen. Zeth B seemed to find her voice soothing. On the 7th day, Amy sat in the nursery courtyard watching Zeth A and Zeth B play with a group of 4 other young ones. They were still cautious. They still checked on her location regularly. But they were playing, learning, growing. Matriarch Kesaval approached and sat down beside her. This was not an easy thing to do given the size difference. You have done well, human. Thank you, Matriarch, though I had a lot of help. Accepting help is a sign of wisdom. Kesaval watched the playing young. I was wrong to be so harsh initially. Commander Veshkal was correct. Our ways must adapt, but it is difficult for old ones to change. I understand. Change is hard for humans too. Tell me, Dr. Sullivan, what made you volunteer to care for these young? You could have refused. Your captain would have supported you. Amy thought about that. When I was 7, my youngest brother was born early. He was very small and sick. He had to stay in the hospital for weeks. He was hooked up to machines fighting to stay alive. My parents practically lived at the hospital. My other brother and I stayed with our grandmother. I felt so helpless, but he survived? Yes, and when he finally came home, I helped take care of him. Feeding, changing, playing with him. It gave me purpose, made me feel like I was helping. Amy smiled at the memory. I think that's when I decided I wanted to work with living things, to help them thrive. These young ones needed someone. I could be that someone. It was that simple. Nothing is ever that simple, Kesaval said, but her tone was warm. But I appreciate your honesty. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the young ones play. 2 very different beings united by a common goal, the welfare of the young in their care. On the 8th day, something important happened. Zeth A initiated play with a young one Amy had never seen before. This young one was bigger and more aggressive in play. Amy tensed, ready to intervene if needed. But Zeth A held their own, wrestling and tumbling with confidence. They are learning clan ways, Nixra observed from beside Amy. Strength, courage, social hierarchy. You have taught them well. I just gave them a safe space to grow, Amy replied. They did the rest themselves. That is the mark of a good caregiver, knowing when to step in and when to step back. That evening, after the young ones had fallen asleep in her quarters, Amy sat with Tixall reviewing progress notes. The matriarch will make her final evaluation tomorrow, Tixall said. I believe she will rule in your favor. The young ones have progressed remarkably. What happens after that? Amy asked. Will I have to leave them? That will be the matriarch's decision. But know this, Dr. Sullivan. What you have done here will not be forgotten. You have shown our people that outsiders can understand and respect our ways. That is a valuable lesson. The 9th day brought visitors from the horizon's edge. Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Kate Morrison were permitted to come aboard the Territorial Claw to observe the young one's progress. Kate's eyes went wide when she saw Zeth A and Zeth B playing confidently with other young ones in the nursery. Amy, they're so different from when I last saw them. They've grown a lot, Amy agreed. Physically and emotionally. Captain Hayes watched the scene with interest. Doctor, you've accomplished something remarkable here. The Zethian delegation has been sending very positive reports. I had a lot of help, sir. Nevertheless, your work here has advanced our diplomatic relations significantly. The Zethians are talking about opening more cultural exchange programs. That evening was the young ones' last night in Amy's quarters. Tomorrow would be the final evaluation, and regardless of the outcome, they would be moved to permanent quarters within the clan nursery. Amy sat on the floor with both of them in her lap, as she had that first night. They were bigger now, heavier. Their scales had started to harden slightly. They made more complex sounds when they vocalized. "You two have come so far," she whispered, stroking their scales. "I'm so proud of you." Sethe looked up at her and made a sound that was almost like a word. It was short, repeating. Amy's translator couldn't process it, but she thought she knew what it meant. "I'll miss you too," she said softly. Both young ones curled closer, making that humming sound that meant contentment. They fell asleep like that, safe and warm and loved. Amy didn't sleep much that night. She knew that tomorrow would bring change. She had done her job. The young ones were ready to fully integrate into clan life, but knowing that didn't make it easier to let them go. She thought about what she would say to the matriarch, how she would explain that successful caregiving meant preparing young ones to not need you anymore. That love sometimes meant stepping back. As dawn broke over the territorial claw, Amy gently woke the young ones for one last morning together. They ate breakfast slowly. Amy memorized every detail. The way Zethe always ate the protein paste first. The way Zeth B liked to have their back scales stroked while eating. Then it was time. Amy picked up both young ones and headed to the central gathering space for the final evaluation. Whatever happened next, she knew she had given these two scared orphans something precious. A chance to heal, to grow, and to find their place in the world. And sometimes, she thought, that was enough. The entire clan gathered in the main courtyard. Matriarch Keseval stood on an elevated platform. Amy stood in the center, feeling very aware of how out of place she looked among the towering Zethian figures. Zeth A and Zeth B stood beside her. They were calm and confident in a way they hadn't been 10 days ago. Behind them stood Healer Nixera, Scholar Tixel, and Commander Veshkal. "We gathered to acknowledge achievement," Keseval announced. Her voice carried through the space. 10 days ago, we received 2 young ones who had lost their parent. They were failing to bond with caregivers of our own species. Today, those same young ones are healthy, social, and thriving. She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled clan members. This was not accomplished through Zethian methods. It was accomplished through the care of an outsider who saw need and answered it without hesitation. Dr. Amy Sullivan of Earth has proven herself worthy of recognition. Keseval descended from the platform and approached Amy directly. She carried a small piece of worked metal on a chain. It was a medallion of some kind. "In Clan Territorial, we have a tradition," the matriarch explained. "Those who successfully care for young, not their own blood, are granted the title of honorary clan. This medallion marks you as such. You are clan Amy Sullivan, for as long as you choose to be." Amy accepted the medallion with shaking hands. "Matriarch, I'm honored. As well you should be. We do not grant this lightly." Keseval's expression softened. "The young ones will remain with the clan, as is proper. But they will remember you, and you will always be welcome here." The ceremony continued with various clan members coming forward to offer their own acknowledgments. Amy was surprised by how emotional it made her. These beings had been hostile and suspicious just days ago. Now they were treating her as one of their own. After the ceremony, there was a feast. Amy found herself seated at a table with Veshkal, Tixal, Nixra, and several other Zethians, who had become friendly during her stay. The young ones were at a separate table with their cohort, but Zethby kept looking over at Amy, seeking reassurance. "They will miss you," Nixra observed. "As will I. Your approach to caregiving has given me much to think about." "You'll take good care of them," Amy said with confidence. "You all will." "When do you return to your ship?" Veshkal asked. "Tomorrow morning. Captain Hayes has been patient, but we need to finish our negotiations and move on to the next diplomatic mission." "About those negotiations," Veshkal said carefully, "the clan matriarchs have been discussing. What you have done here has had effects." "What kind of effects?" "The kind that lead to mutual defense treaties and trade agreements," Tixal said with what might have been a smile. "Your actions have done more to advance human-Zethian relations than months of formal diplomacy." Amy blinked. "I was just taking care of 2 kids who needed help." "Exactly," Veshkal replied. "You saw a need and filled it. No politics, no calculations of advantage. Just compassion. That is something our people can understand and respect. The next morning, Amy stood in the shuttle bay with the young ones one last time. She had said her formal goodbyes to the clan, but this moment was private. Just her and the two small beings who had occupied so much of her time and heart for the past 13 days. "You two be good," she said softly, stroking their scales. "Listen to Healer Nixra. Play nice with the others, and remember, being scared is okay. It's what you do with that fear that matters." Zetha chirped and pressed against her hand. Zethby climbed up to sit on her shoulder one last time, making that humming sound that meant contentment. "I'm going to miss you too," Amy whispered. Healer Nixra approached and gently collected the young ones. "I will send you updates on their progress if you would like." "I would like that very much." The shuttle ride back to the horizon's edge felt longer than the trip over. Amy stared out the window, watching the territorial claw grow smaller in the distance. She felt empty in a way she hadn't expected. She had known this moment would come, but that didn't make it easier. When she docked, she found Captain Hayes waiting for her in the shuttle bay. "Welcome back, Doctor. I hear congratulations are in order, sir. The Zethians have agreed to a full alliance treaty. Trade routes, military cooperation, cultural exchange programs. Everything we hoped for and more. Commander Veshkal credited your work with the young ones as the deciding factor." Amy felt a surge of pride, followed immediately by exhaustion. "That's wonderful, sir. Though to be honest, I could really use about 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep right now." Daniel smiled. "Granted. But Doctor, before you go, I want you to know that what you did was extraordinary. You took a risk, showed incredible courage, and bridged a gap between two species through simple compassion. That's the kind of officer I'm proud to have on my crew. Thank you, sir. Though I think the young ones did most of the work. They were brave enough to trust a strange alien. All I did was make sure the trust wasn't misplaced." As Amy made her way to her quarters, she passed Lieutenant Paul Carter in the corridor. He smiled when he saw her. "Dr. Sullivan, good to have you back. I heard you made quite an impression." "Just did my job, Lieutenant. Speaking of which, there's a rumor going around that you're being considered for Chief of Xenocultural Relations. Apparently, your approach to first contact situations is being studied by the Diplomatic Corps." Amy laughed tiredly. "One crisis at a time, please." In her quarters, everything was exactly as she had left it. The makeshift jungle gym was still assembled in the corner. The food bowls were clean but still in place. The nest of blankets where the young ones had slept was undisturbed. Amy sat on her bed and felt the silence. No chirping. No little claws clicking on the floor. No warm bodies curling up in her lap. Her communication badge made a sound. "Sullivan here. Doctor, this is Lieutenant Morrison. I'm forwarding you a message from the Territorial Claw. It just came through. Put it through to my quarters, please." A moment later, her screen showed a video message. It showed Zeth A and Zeth B playing in the nursery courtyard. Healer Nixra's voice spoke over the images. "Dr. Sullivan, the young ones wanted you to see that they are well. They speak of you often and ask when you will visit. You are always welcome among Clan Territorial." The video ended, but not before Amy saw both young ones look toward the camera and make that humming sound of contentment. Amy smiled, feeling the weight of the past 2 weeks settle into something warm and lasting. She had made a difference, built a bridge, helped 2 scared young ones find their place in the world. She touched the medallion hanging around her neck. It was hidden beneath her uniform, but she could feel its weight. A reminder of what she had accomplished, of the bonds she had formed. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. The treaty negotiations concluded successfully. The Horizon's Edge moved on to its next assignment. Amy returned to her normal duties as the ship's xenobiologist, but something had changed. Other ships in the fleet started requesting her consultation on first contact situations involving young aliens. The Diplomatic Corps did indeed study her methods. She gave several presentations on cross-species caregiving. 3 months later, Amy stood on the bridge as the Horizon's Edge approached a new star system. This would be first contact with yet another species. The initial scans showed a civilization similar to humanity's in many ways. Captain Hayes looked at her with a slight smile. "Think they'll have any children who need help, Doctor?" Amy laughed. "Let's hope not, sir. I've just gotten caught up on my sleep." But even as she said it, she touched the medallion beneath her uniform. If there were young ones who needed help, She knew she would volunteer in a heartbeat. Lieutenant Kate Morrison approached with a datapad. "Doctor, I've been analyzing the preliminary scans. The new species appears to have a family structure similar to Earth's." "Interesting. That should make communication easier." "There's something else," Kate said, showing her the screen. "They've sent an initial greeting. It includes images of their young. I think they're trying to show us they're not a threat." Amy studied the images. The alien young looked nothing like human children or Zethian young ones. They had 6 limbs and feathered crests, but there was something in their large eyes that was universal. Innocence, curiosity, trust. "They're beautiful," Amy said softly. "You think we'll need your special skills on this mission?" Kate asked with a knowing smile. "I hope not, but if we do, I'm ready." The Horizon's Edge moved into orbit around the new planet. First contact protocols began. Ambassadors were selected. Meeting places were arranged, and in her quarters Amy prepared. She reviewed everything she had learned from the Zethians. She studied the new species biology from the scans they had. She made notes on potential dietary needs and social structures, just in case. Because that was what she did. She saw needs and she filled them. She built bridges between species. She helped the vulnerable find safety and comfort. Her communication device chimed. Another message from the territorial claw. Healer Nixra sent regular updates about Zeth A and Zeth B. This one included a video of them in what appeared to be a classroom setting. They were learning clan history and traditions. They looked happy and confident. At the end of the video, both young ones looked at the camera and made